Welcome to Matters Financial, Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I trust you had a good weekend. It was a pleasure taking part in speaking at the EIB 10th anniversary of their office in Nairobi. They had a function on Friday. Let me put up a photograph of the Vice President Pim, who said it's our 10th birthday and we came bearing gifts, 110 million euros. And interestingly about Europe, they are the biggest trading partner for Africa, and you wouldn't know it given all the talk about China. This is one of the things I was speaking about in my presentation. So thank you to Pim and thank you to the Nairobi office, and really appreciated the invitation. Macro thoughts: the first US Federal Reserve interest rate hike in nearly a decade is going to happen this week, and that's a pretty momentous moment actually. Home thoughts: I took this photograph of the aeroplanes flying above my house on Jamhuri Day. There was a fly past and I tweeted it, and somebody said they haven't even started flying over Nyayo Stadium yet, so obviously go round and then come back for the main event, and it was pretty exciting stuff. I like this photograph, Convergence of the Tribes by Marie Wilkinson and Cyril Christo, Amboseli, Kenya. The Maasai herdsmen with their cattle and a herd of elephant arrive at a common watering hole. Beautiful photograph. I took this photograph of a zebra and called it Zebra Crossing, Amboseli, some time ago. Haven't been there for quite a while. Look forward to going back. It takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. This is E.E. Cummings. Pretty powerful, always pithy. Be melting snow, wash yourself of yourself. That's Rumi. Abe Shinzo tweeted, and because he's been visiting with Narendra Modi in India. And my conclusions are, and I don't know the translation of what he tweeted, but it's a photograph of the two of them, is that Japan and India are possible triangulators of China. I like this photograph. In Washington, a US Secret Service counter-sniper stands on the roof of the White House. This goes back to Paul Virilio, the administration of fear, the way we live now. President Francois Hollande hailed the deal as the first universal agreement in the history of climate negotiations and a major leap for mankind, he said. US Secretary of State, who spent days in Paris negotiating, said the deal sends a critical message to the global marketplace. Ban Ki-moon called it a monumental triumph. Naomi Klein: something everyone should know about #COP21 climate deal. The words fossil fuels do not appear. Neither do the words coal or oil. I like this photograph of a television transmission tower above a huge cloud of fog in Pécs, Hungary. The photograph was taken from the top of the 611-meter Tubes mountain. Delegates applaud at the conference. This is a photograph from Getty Images. I remain of the view that I wrote about on the 23rd of November when I said, I cannot help feeling we are like frogs in boiling water. We have created massive interference in the cosmic tuning phenomenon. And we can have all these desires that will keep it to 1.5 degrees. I don't see how it's going to happen. Climate change: will 1.5 degrees to stay alive deal be enough to save the Seychelles? That was the headline. I couldn't resist it. Let me put up a photograph of the beach in the Seychelles. May soon Aleppo, Syria, hell on earth, and indeed it's turned out to be so. The Syrian-Iraqi conflict has become the 21st century. In the 21st century, what the Balkan Wars were to the 20th century. In terms of explosive violence on an international scale, 2016 could be our 1914. Powerful, independent. Listen to this. The CIA analyst is confident about what is likely to happen in Syria. He says Assad is playing his last major card to keep his regime in power. He believes that the Assad government will step up its efforts to prove that its enemies are being manipulated by outsiders. The probable outcome is a split within Syria's ruling elite, leading to Assad being ousted, though he admits there is no obvious replacement for him. The reasoning in the CIA special analysis entitled Syria, Assad's Prospects is sensible and convincing. Though overconfident that Assad's days are numbered, the extent of this overconfidence is highlighted by a glance at the date of the document, which is the 17th March 1980. Foreign Policy has an article, The Unbearable Lightness of America's War Against the Islamic State. Reasons for that are pretty well known. In the classic World War II novel The Caine Mutiny, author Herman Wouk quoted an ancient adage about the typical bureaucratic response to a crisis: when in danger or in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout. Russia sends warning to West with show of strength in Syria. This has been the Son and Lumiere show in many respects. Until last Tuesday, Britain and America were the only countries with the proven ability to fire cruise missiles at land targets from submarines. Then a salvo of missiles burst through the placid surface of the Mediterranean and soared into a cloudless sky, demonstrating that Russia had become the third member of this elite club. Another interesting piece from Consortium News. The epicenter of the earlier Cold War was in Berlin, not close to Russia. There was a vast buffer zone between Russia and the West and Eastern Europe. Today the epicenter is in Ukraine, literally on Russia's borders. It was the Ukrainian conflict that set this on. And politically, Ukraine remains a ticking time bomb. Today's confrontation is not only on Russia's borders, but it's at the heart of the Russian-Ukrainian Slavic civilization. This is a civil war as profound in some ways as was America's Civil War. This is the important note about who is encircling whom. Mr. Marquez's role is particularly concerning because counter-terrorism officials believe that he represents a strand of impressionable people at life's margins. This was my fact tale I've spoken about before. Very interesting YouTube video I watched, A Land of Many Flags, the breakup of Syria and the death of pluralism, Charles Glass. I came across a profile of Donald Trump from May 1997. I think the thing I'm worst at is managing the press. The thing I'm best at is business. The press portrays me as a wild flamethrower. In actuality, I think I'm much different from that. I think I'm totally inaccurately portrayed. Salesman, and Trump is nothing if not a brilliant salesman, specialized in simulated intimacy rather than the real thing. His modus operandi has a sharp focus: fly the flag, never budge from the premise that the universe revolves around you, and above all, stay in character. His unique talent being Trump, or as he often referred to himself, the Trumpster, looming ubiquitous by reducing himself to a persona. In a 1990 Playboy interview, Trump said the yacht, the glitzy casinos, the gleaming bronze of Trump Tower were all props for the show, adding that the show is Trump and it is sold out performances everywhere. In the French election, the Front National failed to win a single region in its second round of voting, exit polls show, and that tells me that France turned seriously tactical. Let's move on to currency markets. Obviously, the big event this week is going to be the rate hike coming out of the US. The euro last trading at 109.54. The dollar index around the 97.83 level. Japanese yen 121.32. Swissy 0.9853. The pound is at 151.90. Aussie 0.7202. India rupee 67.122. South Korean won 11.8530. Brazilian real 387.24, Egyptian pound 785.28, and the rand, last time I checked, 15.30.18, and that's been all over the place, and I'll come to that in my Africa section. Dollar index, let me put up a 3-month chart of that, And I think, previously we've always seen the dollar retreat after a rate hike. It comes into play. But I'm not so certain that's going to happen this time. Euro dollar, I think, it's not the sell it was, the straight sell it was earlier. And in fact, I think, it leans higher. Dollar Canada, my target remains 140. We're at 137.13. That was from the beginning of the year. Actually, gold, last trading 1070. I think that's going to wobble as well. The big move was in the oil markets. Brent declined 4.5% to $37.93 a barrel. Lowest close since December 24th, 2008. Contract decreased 12% just last week. WTI slipped 3.1% to close at $35.62 a barrel. Contract dropped 11% last week. Let me put up an image that Holger put up of Brent Crude. I spoke about this so many times, but the last time was in August 2015 when I said the meltdown is coming. Oil is now in free fall. The end is nigh for oil-based, rentier-based economies, and I wasn't wrong. Crude oil, let me put up a 3-month chart. Well, I think we're going to see sub 30. Emerging market stocks slumped to a 6-year low before the Fed, but this has been happening for a while. Deutsche Bank Research have put out some interesting African research that's promising long-term outlook despite challenges ahead. A new chapter for growth, more subdued, shifting drivers, fiscal and currency challenges, you can say that again, favorable demographics, poor infrastructure and business environment, a path to economic transformation, agricultural value chains. Sub-Saharan Africa, $1.7 trillion GDP, a billion people, 15% of the world. Outlook GDP growth to remain robust, particularly in the eastern countries, more economically diverse and relatively well integrated in the EAC. That's an interesting point. Burundi violence left more than 87 dead, the army says. I've been speaking about the spillover risk from May this year. It is now going off the charts. Kudu Padresh, who I follow and who lives in Burundi, hasn't apparently been asked to leave. One of his tweets over the weekend was a lone pirogue glides across the wind-ruffled surface of a lake in northern Burundi. South African President Jacob Zuma stepped back from the brink and named his second finance minister in 4 days on Sunday, reappointing Pravin Gordhan. The rand jumped as much as 6.4%, the biggest intraday gain since October 2008. This is positive in the sense it shows Zuma's power is more constrained than his actions last week suggested, but it is also very damaging to him. And one must increase the probability that he is recalled now. I wrote about the acrimonious exit of Nene, but events overtook my Sunday morning article, but it confirms that President Zuma has woken up to his limits. I said he toppled his highly respected finance minister, replaced him with an apparent neophyte, David Van Rooyen. The response was real time. Zuma must fall became the most trending hashtag in South Africa. Rand assets got crushed as investors worldwide hit the eject at any price button. The Rand cratered to a low of 16.0543. Helen Zille, Nene's firing is key to understanding how the ANC works. Don't cross Zuma's path, even if it is in South Africa's interests, if you want to keep your job. And I said, the political noise around our Eurobond has also sent our dollar yield on our 10-year bond to above 9%. The signal emitted by Nene's unceremonious sacking has crisscrossed the world. First and second round effects are going to shudder South Africa Inc., so he stepped back from that. But a very interesting piece I came across, Ryan Malan, ad-libbing Zuma exposes real reasons he fired Nene. Most of South Africa and the world, for that matter, has thus far relied on a short statement from the presidency to try and understand Jacob Zuma's irrationale for firing a respected finance minister. But a globally respected author and journalist, Ryan Milan, explains in this brilliant contribution what most of us have missed. Like all South Africans, I woke up to great lamentations and gnashings of teeth. Most speculated it had something to do with Mr. Nene's determination to control spending and block projects that seemed dear to the presidential heart. But as of this writing, nobody is paying much attention to the speech Zuma made immediately after his fateful move against Nene. This is a pity because it was an extraordinary address delivered without the benefit of the written material over which Zuma so frequently stumbles. This time he looked his audience in the eye and spoke off the cuff for 50-odd minutes. And what he said was, well, in his own estimation, it was most historic. One got the impression that the president felt he had crossed a threshold and needed to explain himself. His story began with the birth of humankind in Africa, proceeded to the evils of colonialism and slavery, and ended with a lecture on the absolute necessity a lecture on the absolute for full economic freedom. Last time I checked, this was EFF terrain, and Zuma is clearly moving to occupy it. Nene was not mentioned by name, but there were several veiled references to Africans who don't know who they are and might not even realize they are serving the enemy. So, if you don't have 50 minutes to spare, here's a transcript. The scene is a hotel banquet room somewhere in South Africa. Zuma's speech starts in its customary way. Some pages on his podium, he squints at them, reads the greeting. He clears his throat to say, it says, "Let me say something as a child of this continent. Africa is big, very big. The continent is the biggest in the world. Cradle of humankind, some say. It was the harshest system, and it was imposed on us more than on anybody else because the economy is an important thing. Free labor of slaves made an important contribution to the economy of other people. The colonists wanted to change us from what we were to something almost like their own image, make us hate ourselves and our way of life and wish to be like them." It's a fantastic transcript. Please go and have a look at it. It really gives you a deep insight into how the president is thinking. I know nothing about the new man, George Herman, head of South African investments at Cape Town-based Citadel Investment Services. Well, he was very short-lived. David Van Rooyen, I'll put up a photograph of him. The speculation was that Nene joined Niene's pile of victims. Damina advisors put out a report South Africa may be on the verge of crossing a major policy Rubicon, which must have scared everyone. This is the idea that he's looking to nationalize some of the mines. Dollar rand, it's all over the place. Let me put up a 1-month chart. South African all share at 15-week lows. Egyptian pound 785, Egyptian EGX 30 down 27.3% year to date. Naira at a new low of 260 to the dollar on the unofficial market. That is going to break as well. Nigerian all share down 21.32% year to date. World Vision, EU find out which countries are particularly impacted by El Nino. These are the African countries. Siddharth Chatterjee, President Kenyatta inspects a joint services guard of honor to commemorate Kenya's Independence Day. Nice photograph he took. At least 164 ministers are attending the WTO forum in Nairobi this week and are expected to make major compromises to lay the foundation for a global trade treaty. We wish them luck in that exercise. East African Portland Cement reported full year earnings per share surged 1,946%. 101.6% of the full year profit originated from a fair value gain in investment property. Those results are on the website, take a look at them. I took this point from an article in the East African. Lost in all the noise has been the stark fact that Mr. Odinga has himself been unable or unwilling to offer clear proof of his accusations. That's what I was saying before, it's more political than an economic fight. Panorama, the secret bribes of big tobacco. Have a look at that. That link is up in full. Mumia Sugar ditched Deloitte and have appointed RSM to be their auditors. Kenya shilling, probably the least volatile currency in the world in the last 4 weeks. 102.15 last, probably trades off a little bit. So Nairobi all share up 0.3% on Friday, down 11.15% year to date. Nairobi NSC 20 down 21.86% year to date. Once again, thank you for stopping by. Wishing you a super week.